We want to continue on with the breaking news of the day so far, where a person of interest has been taken into custody out in Pennsylvania in connection with the murder of UnitedHealthcare CEO that happened last Wednesday here. So we want to continue to talk about this, talk a little bit about the investigation, obviously in its sixth day, and now appears to have a major break there in the case. So let's bring in our next guest here on Live Now from Fox, a friend here of the program. This is Mark Herrera, safety and security analyst, as well as a special operations former SWAT team member. Thanks so much for being here with us, Mark.
It's my pleasure, Mike. Thank you.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about this. Seems to be a major break right now. They have a person of interest saying people said they saw the person inside a McDonald's that looked similar to the ones on the wanted posters, and now we have an arrest.
Listen, I think this is great. A lot of due diligence went into trying to identify just the person of interest, and that's exactly what it is, Mike. Is it's a person of interest, so you can't really say, well, is this going to be the shooter? Until the investigation is complete, the interviews take place, it's still really undetermined. But a person of interest basically says that they've had corroborating evidence. They've gathered enough evidence or additional evidence to kind of strengthen the case to identify, to say, well, based on any forensic analysis or eyewitness accounts or surveillance footage, we have enough right now to reasonably believe that this could be the person in connection with the shooting. And although not 100% confirmed that this is the person, they're going to approach it in such a way that it's simply a person of interest. So they've done a really good job investigating this thing. Your crime scene analysis has been really good, right? So if you take a look, they've gone back to the crime scene. They're revisiting the crime scene to collect any further evidence and analyze anything that the suspect might have left or dropped behind. But one of the key components is the eyewitnesses and any of the surveillance videos that were taken.
You know, Mark, it's so intriguing here with this case as the manhunt entered the sixth day, and it seemed at times that the suspect in the beginning was toying with police and investigators by leaving the bag in Central Park to be found, have inside of it Monopoly money. Seems like a very well planned out, intricate, and then we hear today that this possible person of interest walks into a McDonald's. Everyone is looking for this person. They have eyes on this person, and goes into a McDonald's.
You have to ask yourself a question: why would a suspect leave anything behind that they would want you to find? Again, there's a lot of reasons that go behind that. Did he drop it by accident? I don't think that's the case. Did they drop any device or item behind so that it throws off the investigation? Very possible. Was it to make a statement? That's a possibility. The only way that you're going to determine why this evidence or information was left behind, knowing that it was going to be confiscated and analyzed, is once the interview takes place and depending on how much information the suspect is willing to give them. To walk into a McDonald's knowing that he's very high profile at this point, there's a lot of reasons behind that as well. Did the individual want to get caught, right? Who knows? But here's the thing. We do know for a fact, because of the duration, the length of time that it took to just find a person of interest, when he just simply rode off on a bicycle, says that this individual pre-planned this really well. There was a lot of thought process that went into it. So to really make it this far, he planned it well.
And Mark, some other new news that is coming in here in this investigation with the person in Pennsylvania now in custody, that this person did have a weapon on them as well as a fake ID. My question to you, and I think a lot of our viewers wanting to know, okay, if you are on the run here for this crime that was caught on camera, why do you still have maybe the fake ID and the weapon on you? Why has that not been dumped like 5 days ago?
There's so many motives and reasons as to why individuals do certain things. But to your point, Mike, yeah, absolutely. Would you have gotten rid of all that information? Most would have, right? But it just depends. Now we got to keep in mind too that when you talk about just social media alone, there many outlets are now portraying this guy as a hero. He's not a hero. Let's get that. Let's get that out there right now. He's not a hero. He just took an individual's life, regardless of what his motives were. It's unjust. So it's not until they investigate and interview this person of interest or the suspect as to where you're going to determine why this individual had the certain motives to do the things he did to lead the investigators a certain way or to simply get caught. If the suspect cooperates and a confession reveals critical information, this is only going to accelerate this investigation. But again, it's going to be one of those things that they're going to stay strict to the law because they don't want to lose any of this evidence whatsoever due to information that might be skewed or what I call fruits of the poisonous tree. They want to be very careful with that and make sure they do their due diligence during this part of the investigation.
Yeah, very true. And Mark, in your experience, how likely is it for this person of interest to be cooperating with the authorities back at the station or wherever they brought him? Is it likely, or is it something where he's not going to say nothing and try to get a lawyer?
Mike, it could be either or. It's basically a gamble. It's a guess. It's a 50-50. Is he going to cooperate? What's in it for him? What was his motive behind doing what he did? What message did he want to send? Because truly, if somebody wants to send a message, and they wanted to get caught, they're going to cooperate and give all of the information as to why they did what they did. But if he wanted to not send out the message at all, he'd stay very tight-lipped. Do we know what he's going to say or which direction he's going to go? No, because if he made an attempt to actually leave evidence out to lead investigators to him or purposely wanted to get caught, then I think he's going to be potentially willing to give some information. But we won't know until once they start the investigation and start the questioning process, Mike.
Yeah, and it just seems like this is just the tip of the iceberg. I think so many people have questions into this, just how the suspect, pretty much lying in wait there, knew of the movements here of the CEO, came to the city about 10 days prior, and kind of want to learn a little bit more of this timeline and why targeting this particular person.
Listen, Mike, I'll tell you right now, he planned it out in such a way that he had some sort of a motive behind it. We know that the evidence that was collected at the scene and the messaging that was on those bullet casings kind of lead us to believe that he had a reason in his mind as to why he did it. And you have a lot of followers that are kind of following that same lead. He pre-planned it. He knew his schedule. There's no doubt. So you have to ask yourself the question, if I'm an investigator, how did he know my schedule? How did he know where I was going to be at that given moment, at that given time? Knowing the schedule is something that I think is critical, Mike. Who gave him that information, or what internal knowledge did he have within that gave him the information that the suspect or that the CEO was going to be at that location at that moment at that given time? So I would not leave and invest. I can rest assure you, investigators are not leaving any stone unturned.
Mark, does that sort of lead you to believe that maybe, for investigators, do they sort of, when they see that information and see, okay, how did he know when this person was coming? Was it somebody maybe inside? Was it somebody that the CEO knew? Was it a family member that tipped off this person? Could that be something that investigators are looking at as well?
Yes, and yes, Mike. Any of those things that you just mentioned is something that I would not rule out. Who knew, right? Who had the information? Who was he associated with? How many complaints had been received or threats had been received, and by whom? These are all things that are definitely being looked at.
Yeah, Mark, this is obviously something that was breaking just in this last hour, and we're waiting for more news coming out of Pennsylvania. But lastly, for you, what is going to happen now in this next 24 hours as they continue to question this person of interest right now?
Yeah, they're going to go through the legal process, right? They're going to start the interview process. They're going to determine if there was culpability on this individual's part. If there was, at that point, legal representation comes into play. They're going to backtrack. They're going to try to identify the motive, and hopefully identify if there are any other associates or persons of interest that he may have been a part of this. So those are all the things that they're going to look at, but it will go through the entire legal process.
All right, Mark Herrera, thanks so much for joining us on Live Now from Fox, speaking to us on the news of the day. We appreciate it, as always.
My pleasure.